according to your knowledge, to your analysis, to your coverage, what has been happening in the last hours, both in Israel and Gaza?
Israel has experienced the most horrific terror attacks ever since the initiation of Israel, from the air, from the land, and from the sea. Terrorists has entered Israeli small towns, kibbutzes, and they entered with guns, and they brought their own weapons, they brought their own trucks, and they entered and started shooting and and they also kidnapped children, women, men, grandparents. All of them were, they took them on trucks and took them back to Gaza. It took a few hours for the Israeli authorities to understand what's going on. And I think in the next few hours, they were trying to have forces go to the south and try to get control of what's going on. At this point, when we are talking, Israel has achieved control over most of them, but some of the civilians were taken to Gaza. So we have now people who are held captive in Gaza Strip by Hamas. And I think Israel, the IDF, Israel, and the Israeli government are planning a big military operation in order, of course, to take a price from Hamas people.
Well, the word war has been mentioned.
It is a war. It is war. It's definitely a war. I mean, Prime Minister has declared it's a war. The thing is in Israel that you have to have an agreement between the government to go into war. So maybe there's a certain formalities that hasn't been taken yet, but it is war in every possible way.
Now,
300 rockets were shot. This is war.
It's terrible. Now, how did we get here, Sharon? Israel and Palestine have had very complex historic tension. But what has happened in the last few months? What has changed in the last year to get to where we are today?
Well, two main things. Look at Israel and look at the Palestinians. If you look at Israel, of course, this government, which is considered as the right-wing extremist government, is probably isn't taken well in the Palestinian side. Let's define it this way. A lot of people who are going to Al-Aqsa to pray, that makes them furious. And also a lot of measurements taken in the past government, the previous government, are not adopted now. So this is one thing. But the main thing what happened is the control of Iran in this area. You see Hamas is controlled by Iran. You see that Nasrallah controlled by Iran. You see that even the Jihad Islami, the GAP, and not only in the Gaza Strip, but also in the West Bank, is being controlled by Iran. They have a motivation to try to make this to all the Palestinians to wake up against Israel, and this is a motivation they're trying to promote for quite a long time.
Okay, now armed conflicts always have a very sizable humanitarian cost. What did the attacks early in the morning have cost? And the declaration of war, what would it mean for both Israeli and Palestine civilians? Let's talk about civilians, which, as you said some minutes ago, have been affected today in the morning.
Well, this is the most painful part of this war, because Israeli civilians are hurt, children, women are taken in captivity to Gaza. So this is a big price for us to pay. We don't remember these kind of visions we have seen today since people say the Holocaust. A young woman with 2 babies in her arms is taken by terrorists. This is something, I'm talking about it and I'm chilled. This is crazy. And you see old woman, they ask her, the terrorists, to do like a V of triumph or something. And the old lady, maybe she's a Holocaust survivor herself. So this is what we have experienced today. What will happen in Gaza is also poor, because these people are also taking by Hamas, is controlling Gaza Strip, and the people who live in Gaza will pay the price, because Israeli Air Force is going to be very active in the next few days. And if they're going to hide, maybe in schools, maybe in hospitals, of course, Israel does not involve people who are not civilians, who are not involved in the war. But there will be casualties. Even now, if you look at the electricity system and all the vital infrastructure in Gaza is going to be hurt, and people are going to be hurt.
Sure. Now, Israel is considered to have one of the most sophisticated security and intelligence apparatus. What happened today suggests that this apparatus failed, or what exactly failed in being aware of what could have happened before what happened today. I'm sorry for expressing it as
well.
As
Well, you're asking the same questions all of us are asking.
Okay.
Civilians, journalists, we are all asking this. Intelligence, the intelligence community has to answer this, and even the Shin Bet, our security, like our FBI, has to answer this question. We don't know what happened. You know how Israel is on top of things when we talk about Iran, the nuclear capabilities. When we talk about Syria, Israel is always on top of things. What happened here will be investigated, will be learned for years. We were held off guard. We admit it, we were held off guard.
Yes.
Caught off guard.
Is there a space of, I don't know, diplomatic work, any effort for deceleration measure? Is there a possibility that Israel and Hamas have a diplomatic work?
Well, we assume that usually the Egyptians take this part and they try to negotiate, but at this point, I don't think Israel has the privilege of even negotiating diplomatic channels, because Israel has to really now go forceful with a military force to take the price it has to do. Because if you look at Israel, what happened to us today will be learned by other enemies. So it's not time for a negotiation at this point. And I think the United States and Biden were very clear about it, that they have our back, we have their back, and we have a network of countries that support us, and they believe this is the time for military action, and very forceful military action. We'll talk diplomatic channels later.
Yeah. Now, what are the domestic implications, Sharon, of both the attack and the declarations of war? What does the call for an emergency unit government mean? Do the intelligence service, Mossad and Shin Bet, have any political intent?
Well, first of all, in times of war, and we're still licking our wounds, we don't even know how to count how many people we lost. It's few hundred, and we have over 1,000 wounds. So it's not a time for politics, not at all. We're all concerned with the people who are still captivated by Hamas. And this country has to work, of course, to try to retain security. So none of the politics really enter we don't talk about it. This is the time for Gantz and Lapid maybe to join forces with Netanyahu and to go through this war together. After, we'll talk politics. At this point, we're all united in one thing, and I think it's not a secret. We had a big argument and controversy in Israel in the past few months, and but I think at this point, you see the people who were demonstrating, wearing their uniform and going to the field. Everybody's enrolling. It's not a question of politics at this point. We're united. We're totally united.
Okay. And you have mentioned the Iranian involvement in this conflict. What could be the geopolitical implications from now on? Is it expected that any other force could cooperate or could appear to either help in negotiations or to help any of both forces?
Okay, let's start with a big fear here in Israel, the fear from the north. We know Nasrallah and Hezbollah They're very well equipped. They have missiles and long distance missiles that could hit Tel Aviv. And this is the big fear. So if you've heard President Biden of the United States saying, I advise other forces not to take advantage and join in. So this is the big thing that the world needs to look into and to see that let's say Iran, by its proxy, Nasrallah and Hezbollah will not enter the game from the north. So this is one thing. What will happen is that once the military forces will enter Gaza, and after that, probably the next few days, then we'll hear voices from Europe and from the States that to cease fire. And then negotiations about the hostages, the kidnapped people will start at that point. So this is like a cycle we all know will happen unless that there's going to be a change in the north, and unless Hezbollah will join in, then we're talking about a major war. And I think it will include the rest of the world, because you have Russia there, you have Iran, you have there, and you have United States, and it's of course, and its stake at the area. So it's going to be more problematic. I hope we won't get there.
Is today's night, Saturday's night, the most difficult one you have had in many years? And what's the challenge tomorrow morning, tomorrow, Sunday, when you wake up and try to understand what has happened in the last few hours?
I must admit, most of us will not sleep tonight, because what we see, we get through messages, and we get a lot of videos that now are starting to come out of the people who were captivated by Hamas, and they were killed in cold blood. So I don't think any Israeli would sleep tonight. So we're kind of like over, I don't know how many hours, almost 20 hours, we're awake, and all of us follow the news. And we have no idea. We haven't faced this kind of threat ever. Most of us never faced this kind of threat, and our children haven't faced it. So I'm reluctant to tell you what's going to happen. I mean, we have to trust our government. We have to trust our allies. We have to trust our people who are going to fight. But we cannot even try to estimate what's going on.
Well, Sharon, thank you very much for this interview. We are very grateful for your words. Thank you for sharing your knowledge as a journalist, but also what you feel now as a human being. For us, it's really important to understand. In the distance, it's very difficult sometimes to really understand what's happening, and we'll be aware of the conflict from this part of the world.
So thank you for hearing us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
ADN 40, siempre conmigo.